Good day and welcome back to another DBZ Dokkan Battle video. In this video we are going to be taking a look at the latest Dokkan Boss Rush, thank you very much, that has come to DBZ Dokkan Battle Global, and we're going to see basically, obviously these things are not super hard, so we're going to basically just be taking a look at what it's like and basically discuss some of the units we're using, some of the units or the Dokkan events that we're going against. So this first Dokkan event, I believe, is for the SS4 Goku, I want to say. I can't actually remember who this is for. But yeah, basically, we're just going to talk about some of the units that we're using. Obviously, we're using a Dragon Ball Heroes team. And I think most people are generally quite happy with Dragon Ball Heroes. I think there are some concerns about whether the teams are, how can I say, good for all kinds of players. I think there is a concern that maybe the units are not so, like, free player friendly. I think most characters lose a lot of versatility when they are not distinctly, like with a dupe. When you have a dupe in the Dragon Ball Heroes team, I think generally speaking, they tend to look a lot better. Whereas I think now people kind of feel like you have to have a dupe in the team, which makes sense to a larger extent. I don't want to say it doesn't make sense. It does make sense, but to a certain portion, I think people do overrate or are overcomplicating how distinctly difficult it does get. For me at least, I personally think that all factors considered, it's pretty fair for most players to have a pretty decent time with all of their units. I think most Heroes units are generally quite good. I don't actually think they are bad. I think most players do need to maybe get their heads around the fact that not every unit's going to look as good upon release as maybe they wanted to. But I do think, and I will admit, that Goku, out of all of them, probably does need a dupe to really look like how people want him to look. But yeah, overall the Heroes team is a lot of fun. We're using the Extreme Heroes team. I think the Extreme Heroes team is pretty good. The Extreme Heroes team kind of has this nice flow with it. Like, if you think about it logically, the Extreme Heroes team's got a very nice kind of mix of like very, very, very good units and distinctly incredible units. And I think that's really where they stand. One thing they do lack is a bit of a turn 1 tank. So they do lack a little bit of like a okay, this guy is an incredible turn 1 tank. This guy is an absolute beast of a turn 1 tank, slot 1 tank. He's going to be able to soak up all the damage. They don't really have that. They kind of have Great Ape Combo, who's decent, don't get me wrong. He can definitely be very good as a tank. It's not to say that he's not a tanky unit. They have a ton of units that are super tanky after supering, which I think is incredible. They have literally some of the tankiest units after supering in the game. They have a ton of units with over 50% evasion. They've just got a lot going on, but they do not seem to have a lot of turn 1 tanks. Now, I do think Janemba and AGL Golden Metal Cooler will remedy this when they get their awakening. I think Golden Metal Cooler kind of fixes this already, in a sense. Like, he looks like he can be a tanky boy. But yeah, I do think there's a little bit of a like, okay, a little bit of a lack of that kind of like, I'm just gonna soak up all the damage type thing. Obviously, I think most players will accept that there could be some tankier options. With that being said, the Extreme team still looks very good. with options like Fu, Sealess, Super Hearts, Golden Cooler. You've got some of the biggest damage dealers I've ever seen in the team, and alongside units like the Supreme Kai of Time, Brainwashed, and Robaloo, who have great utility and very interesting mechanic-based passives. I think there's a pretty good metric of like combinations of units that are just stellar and units that are just also good overall. So yeah, for me, I'm pretty happy with the Extreme Heroes team. Personally speaking, I don't think there's too much that you needed to do to improve this team. I do think, you know, most players probably sit along the lines of being happy with where we are with like the Extreme team. I do think it's better than the Super team. If I'm being entirely honest, I think the Extreme team is better than the Super team. I think it's just got better synergy overall, a lot of overlapping support, which I think helps. I don't want to say too much, but I do think, you know, it really does help like a lot to have like so much overlapping support. When you have units like Golden Cooler providing 40% support, and you have Super Hearts providing 40% support, and you've got, you know, 2 or 3 units that are just all kind of overlapping 40% supports, I think a team tends to do well. Again, the only real limitation being that yes, there is kind of a lack of super tanky units, you know, units that are going to absolutely rock your world with tanking. But beyond that, I think most of them are pretty good. I personally would say that, if I can be honest, I think most of the units in this game are pretty top notch. In this team are pretty top notch. I don't think there's any units that are bad in any way, shape, or form. I don't think there's any units that are not good in a way. I think most of the units are incredible. I think most of them are huge. Like when we talk damage, I think, you know, this team can really do some big damage. Like this team can do some huge damage, which, yeah, is nice. It is very good to have those levels of damage, and I think that's always something that's appreciated, at least for me. I personally think it's something that's very good, and I do appreciate it a lot. So yeah, I think overall I would have to say, honestly speaking, that I'm super duper happy with how they just built this whole team. For me personally, I think it's just got more than enough going on for it, and yeah, I think overall it's a pretty good, pretty fun time. Of course, you know, I think most players will have their own varying opinions on the Extreme Heroes team and on any Heroes team. I think the jury is always out because they're such a secular banner. They're so on their own. They're so isolated. They require you to kind of be invested in the idea of Dragon Ball Heroes. So the more you invest in the like Heroes genre, the better the Heroes banner becomes, if that makes sense. Like the more you get into Heroes as a category, the deeper you go, the better that category becomes, because you always have great incentive to summon on it in the future, because your units will always easy aid, you will always get the newest lead, which will always improve your easy aid units. You know, if you look at people that own units like Fu, that own units like Xeno, SS3 Goku, Xeno, SS3 Vegeta, those people are always benefiting comparatively to people that never invested on those banners. And that's not to say that there's no incentive for something on units or anything like that, but it's definitely, I would say at least, it's definitely something that players obviously want to be involved in and be invested in, because the more you get invested in it, the better it's going to be for you. You know, for players that don't get invested in it, yeah, probably not going to see as much value in heroes as someone who's, knee deep in heroes, and someone who's waist deep in heroes is probably going to be seeing it with even more value. Someone who's foot deep in heroes is not going to be seeing as much. So yes, it is a little bit dependent on that, but for me, for the most part, I think I at least am happy with how they're doing heroes and how they're doing heroes units. For me personally, I think they really are becoming entertaining to use, and I do think they're good enough to do the hardest content in the game, which is all you can really ask. Yes, they might age out a little bit, but I think at this time they currently do all of the hardest content. I think it's a bit more difficult on the JP side. I don't think you get as much joy with them as someone else might, because obviously I think generally people who do kind of summon on the global banner do get that extended period with them. If you look at like when things appear or things like that, I think on global you get a good 6 or 7 months of the heroes units being kind of in the realm of usability, whereas on the JP side they kind of do fall back a little bit. But that's, again, to each their own. For some people it will be this way, for others it won't be. It's just going to depend on, how deep you wish to go, realistically speaking. It's not something I can decide for you. I love this team, and I love using them, and I will always enjoy using heroes. It's a banner I always look forward to. I think it brings some pretty wacky units into the game, and it does help out some other teams, and just some units that generally wouldn't have good pairing partners. I do think it tends to help out. So for me, I'm pretty chilled with how heroes is on a scale of 1 to 10. I'm probably at an 8 right now in terms of how happy I am with their overall performance and how good they look. Obviously they could look a bit better, I think, but for me, I do think they're a lot of fun to use, and I won't really complain too much about them. I think you have to be a little bit reasonable with these things. So overall, I think they do a good job. Obviously these are all just Dokkan events, so you're not really going to be seeing anything too crazy. We've managed to see some pretty nice synergy between Robaloo and between Supreme Kai of Time Brainwashed, which is always cool. We've managed to see some pretty cool synergy between some units like, how can I say, some units like Mecha Dbz. I think he's a pretty fun unit that's still very usable. I just think a lot of people didn't use him because they didn't have really an extreme lead. So having someone like Mecha Dbz kind of get a lead where now people can kind of see just how good he really is as a unit is also something that I really do appreciate. And it's one of the reasons why I do quite like Hearts quite a lot as a unit, is that kind of like, okay, well, you know what, he is a unit that can kind of let units like Mecha Dbz really look a lot better. I think so many times units, when they don't have the right lead, they don't tend to look as impressive as some other units do. And so when you can see a unit really starting to look a lot more favorably, and people get to see, just how good that unit is, I think that's always something that's really cool. And I think that's probably the thing about Super Hearts that I like the most, is he makes the extreme Dragon Ball Heroes team way more viable, just because it gives them that big lead, and having a big lead is something that's important. It's not super easy for teams to always run with these cross-class leads, to run like a full extreme team, but to have, or be forced to have, like a Super Saiyan God Trunks as a lead was a very difficult situation for a lot of players because of that fact, because it is difficult to kind of like run these units when they don't really have a good link set, they don't really show out, and so one unit always ends up being gimped, whether it's the Trunks who starts to look really bad, or it's the extreme units on that rotation that just don't tend to mesh well. Having good, well-set leads does just help everyone at the end of the day, and I think that's something that Hearts really did help out a lot with. And so yeah, I'm really happy with that overall. Obviously, you know, to each their own, but again, I think overall I'm really happy with all the heroes changes, and obviously just really chilled in general. But yeah, people will see things how they want to see things. Me personally, I think yeah, this team is fun, and I think this category is a lot of fun. So that's pretty much it. Obviously, guys, yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys feel, or how you feel about the Heroes category, or about the Dokkan Boss Battle Rush. Obviously, I just kind of use this time to talk about teams, or just to chill in general. But yeah, overall, lots of fun. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.